Hello guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to tell you one of the most widely used and most important payment terms which is used by two business entities, which is letter of credit. It is widely used globally, especially when the two entities are in a different geographical locations or they are in a different country. To minimize the risk for both the entities, this payment term letter of credit is mostly used, especially when the amount is very high. So, what is a letter of credit? Yeah, I told you it's a payment term, but what exactly is a letter of credit? Letter of credit is a contract in which a bank is involved, a bank at the beneficiary and one the bank at the supplier side. So both the banks ensure that each of the parties fulfill their obligations to receive value. For example, one entity will be providing some goods or services and the other entity will be paying for those goods and services. So what the bank will do? The bank of one party will ensure that correct goods and services are received and they will be and the the beneficiary of those goods and services are able to get the ownership, the rightful ownership of those goods and services, and the other bank will ensure that this party gets the money on time without any risk. So this is basically what a letter of credit it is. It's a contract wherein the banks are involved. So I will just go in briefly. There are different types of letter of credit. I'm not going to go in detail about each type of letter of credit. I will just tell you the most widely used letter of credit. The most widely used letter of credit is irrevocable letter of credit. What do you mean by irrevocable letter of credit? It means this LC is final. You cannot make changes in this LC unless there is a mutual agreement between the two parties to make the changes. That is first thing. Then in the LC it may be mentioned LC at site, LC 30 days, LC 60 days, LC 90 days. What exactly it means? LC at site means the the party who is giving the goods and services, once he sends the proper documentation and once he fulfills his obligation, he will get the payment immediately. When you say LC 30 days or LC 60 days, 30 days or 60 days or 90 days are the number of days credit which the one party is ready to give to the other party. That means once the obligations are fulfilled after 30 days or after 60 days or after 90 days of the invoice date, the payment will be transferred to the sender party. So these are some commonly used types of LC. Now I'm going to tell you only the things, what what are the things which are mentioned in the LC, what are the points in a contract. So you must be know the basics of a contract, what all things are there in the contract. Similar things are there in the letter of credit. It will mention the description of the item or the services provided, that is there. It will mention the amount, the unit price as well as the total amount. For example, the LC amount is 1 million. The party who is providing the goods or services, they cannot claim anything above 1 million. Then will be the quantity. For example, a quantity is 100 tons. One party cannot send goods more than 100 tons. Then will be the tolerance. As I told you, there will be amount and quantity mentioned. So definitely there has to be some tolerance. The person cannot exactly send 1 million. Maybe he may send slightly more. So maybe there will be a tolerance of plus 5% or plus 10% depending on the mutual agreement. Then there will be two most important thing will be the last date of shipment and the LC expiry. What is last date of shipment? Suppose I am buying some goods or service from one party and I told him you should deliver in 4 weeks. How can I ensure that this guy is going to deliver me in 4 weeks? What if he sends after 6 weeks? What if he sends after 8 weeks? To ensure that, I mention in the LC last date of shipment. If I mention the last date of shipment, suppose 30 June, this guy has to make sure that the goods are sent on or before 30 June. If the goods are sent after 30 June, there will be a discrepancy. I will tell you about what is a discrepancy. So last date of shipment, LC expiry. LC expiry means that LC is no longer valid. Normally the LC expiry is like 21 days to 30 days from last date of shipment. For example, the last date of shipment is 30 June. Normally the LC expiry will be like 31st July. Okay. Now the next main important thing in the LC are the documents required. So one supplier or one entity is providing a goods and service. So how the other party will get the rightful ownership of those goods? They will get the rightful ownership of the goods based on the legal shipping documents. What are the legal shipping documents? Like the invoice, certificate of origin, bill of lading, etc., etc. Such documents, the person who is supplying the goods or service, he has to submit those documents in the other party's bank, and when those documents are fulfilled, only then the other bank will pay to the beneficiary bank. So documents required are most critical. This is a point where most of the time disagreements takes place. So the two parties are very careful in the list of documents required. Next is port of loading and port of discharge. There has to be a clear indication from which port it's going to be loaded and from at which port it's going to be discharged. For example, it is going to be loaded in Nhava Sheva, Mumbai, and it is going to be discharged in say Hamburg, Germany. So that detail has to be mentioned in the LC. Next is partial deliveries. Now suppose if there is a big order, say 1000 tons or 1000 meter square of tapes, so that, or there is a service which is given partially. Say suppose the person sends the goods in June month 100 ton, July month 100 ton. That is a mutual agreement. So how do you mention that in the letter of credit? You mention in the letter of credit partial deliveries are allowed. When that point is mentioned that the partial delivery is allowed, that means the other party can keep sending the goods in a partial shipment till the last date of shipment. The last date of shipment has to be fulfilled. Anything sent after last date of shipment, there will be a discrepancy. The next most important thing is Incoterm. I am going to make another video to explain you in a very basic way what is an Incoterm. But for now, Incoterm will be like CIF, X work. What does that mean? Like the obligation of that goods is till where? Like for example, if you say CIF, the supplier has to make the goods available at the other party's port. For example, I am the supplier. I am supplying the goods from Nhava Sheva, Mumbai to Germany. If in the LC it's mentioned CIF Hamburg port, that means I have to pay the cost of the freight and the insurance till the Hamburg port. After the goods reach the Hamburg port, the other party has to take over all the other costs related to clearance, local freight in Germany, etc., etc. So in Incoterm, I'm going to make a new another video where I will explain you how the obligations are transferred. Next is HS code. I'm also going to make a video about HS code, a brief video. But HS code is basically an identification code. Suppose any goods come in the port, how will the custom identify the goods? The item description, many of you will say item description, but the item description for me, this item will be ink, but for some other person it will be something dangerous material. So how to unify this different description? So there is a code called harmonized system code, which tells the customs that, okay, for example, the HS code is 390000. When the custom officer he put that code, he will know, okay, this material is copper used to manufacture cable, for example. So based on those code, the custom officer can know what exactly the goods have arrived. So HS code is mentioned in the LC, and the same HS code the supplier has to mention in the LC. Next is the insurance clause. The insurance clause has to be very clear, like who is obliged to provide the insurance, whether the first party, the supplier, has to provide the insurance, or whether the other party who is receiving the goods, he has to make the insurance. It's not that simple, but it will be a detailed insurance clause will be mentioned. Apart from this, there will be some other clauses, like maybe there will be a clause like need some particular certificate, need some warranty certificate, or some kind of other clauses will be there, which will be mutually agreed between the two parties. So guys, this is all about the things which are there in the LC. You pick up any LC in the world, these things will definitely be present, and this forms a contract between two entities to run the business smoothly, to ensure there are no disagreements, and to minimize the risk of doing business with the other person. Now, in brief, I just want to tell something. I told in the start that there will be discrepancies. If you don't fulfill this, there will be discrepancy. What is discrepancy? If whatever the clauses mentioned in the LC, suppose if the last date of shipment is 30 June and the goods are delivered on 7 July, then the other party's bank will raise a discrepancy. It's like, sorry sir, you have not fulfilled this clause. So the other bank will send the discrepancy to both the parties, that this discrepancies has caused because some obligations are not fulfilled. So this is about discrepancies, and I think that's it. Yeah, so basically when all the obligations are fulfilled, the other party will get the payment, and the one party will get the payment and the other party will get the goods or services smoothly. So that is the sole purpose of letter of credit. I hope this has clarified you the basics of the letter of credit. I am going to make one more video in detail about the letter of credit soon. Okay guys, take care, happy learning.